Good morning, everyone. Apologies that I am off camera. I'm actually on my way in DC to an exciting event, which is why I'll be off camera today. But nonetheless, well, I want to go ahead and get this meeting started. Um, Berta, I don't know if you could just kind of recap for us just some action items that we talked about last week or the last time that we met. And then we'll go ahead and begin our discussion for today. If that's okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine, Alex. So I did send all of you a detailed recap of our last meeting, which was September 7th, 2023. As you have already started, developing, having dialogue on the different recommendations that you want to pursue. So I'm pulling that document right now, and like I mentioned, everything, a summary. If you have that in front of you, then you can pull it as well. But I just wanted to mention highlights, right? So Nora spoke to the importance of highlighting implicit, explicit bias when it comes to speaking to the systems that impact the Latino, Hispanic communities' lives outcomes, and also mentioned the importance of maybe expanding the definition of what a hate crime bias incident is, or means to our community, to include going beyond the explicit racism and also the implicit bias racism, which it's a product of structural systematic racism. So you briefly spoke about the different issues that our community faced, especially during the last president that we had, and how the rhetoric was very negative and harmful to our community. You also spoke to investing in positive youth development initiatives and safe spaces for our youth. Youth is a priority of the cohort. So you talked about including a recommendation for a youth needs assessment and the importance of, hosting different community listening sessions as well. Ruben talked to us about his work with the parents at his children's school, and how for them it has been difficult to really understand the process, the reporting mechanism for reporting an incident of hate or bias. So I also wanted to mention that your cohort has already been working on gathering community input. Danny and Vanessa, thank you, Vanessa, for sharing that feedback that you received from the food distribution event that you hosted, and also Danny doing the same with about 100 youth that participated at an event that he was a part of. Alex, you and everyone have talked about the importance of language access as a policy recommendation, and you floated an idea to meet with our Latino council members Albornoz and Natalie Fanny Gonzalez, and also hosting a roundtable discussion with them and key community organizations. So I do want to give an update, and I'll get to that at the end. You also talked about the importance of better data collection. And as you know, Valeria Carranza from Council President Evan Glass joined us last time, and she shared with you that we do have an Office of Legislative Oversight. As you all know, they produce research reports for the council. So that could be another recommendation that you could make, to have them provide a more in-depth analysis about the status of how hate and bias affects our communities of color, the Latino Hispanic community. You also talked about an initiative, a recommendation to have community grants, right? So we do have grassroots organizations who are doing incredible work in our community, and they our boots on the ground and truly have that authentic community engagement figured out, right? So you also mentioned perhaps also recommending a anti-hate PSA campaign, and you talked about some different examples that are already in place. So then, Vanessa, again, you talked about the importance of really engaging our community, and once again, I know that the cohort already expressed their appreciation to you taking the lead and continuing that work at your distribution site. So thank you for that. And so key decision points. Importance of tapping into other existing forums to engage our community. I know that Nora mentioned there's a newcomers forum in October, November that's coming up. So perhaps, that's another opportunity for the cohort to engage with our community. I will also mention that, give me 1 second here. I moved away from my screen. Okay, so yes, so the roundtable discussion, it's actually on the calendar now, and I will be sending you a calendar invitation. It is on Wednesday, October 4th at 10 a.m. here at the County Council. We already have confirmed both council members Albornoz, Natalie Fanny Gonzalez. So during your discussion today, you could perhaps, set an agenda for that day and discuss what other community organizations you want to have part of that roundtable. We will be recording it as we have been doing for, everything related to the anti-hate task force cohorts work. And that video will be posted on our website the following day to comply with Open Meetings Act. I think if I missed anything, please mention that right now. But you are in a pretty good place. Also, to remind you, your presentation is on November 16th. Thursday, November 16th is when you will be presenting to the full task force. Nora.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to get myself off of. Okay. Okay, thank you. So one question I have is, I continue to raise objections about recording community conversations with the council members. I think it is important to create a safe space if we're going to ask community leaders to come and share their honest opinions and experiences of what's happening ground. There should be some level of privacy. Is there anything in the protocol that allows for it to be a closed meeting? I know that when I've been in, I was on the board of the COA. The public meeting was, of course, open to everyone under the Open Act policy. But then when we wanted to discuss something in private, we would close the meeting. I wonder if the conversation with the council members could be a closed meeting.
Thank you, Nora, for that question. So in my different meetings with our county attorney, because you are a board, committee, or commission of the county, you have to comply with Open Meetings Act. The only way where we wouldn't need to record or provide meeting minutes is if you do not have quorum in your meeting. But once you reach that threshold, we must comply with Open Meetings Act policies. I can raise it to our council attorney again, but I think this has already come up, and I understand the concern and the confidentiality aspect, but it has to be an open forum pretty much and available for the public, everyone to participate. So
But it only has to be open if there's a quorum of us. So I would make the motion then, in the interest of the community voice to be authentic, and also for council member Salvanos and Fanny Gonzalez to also have space to respond to community needs authentically. I would move that we do not have a quorum and that only, a maximum of 2 representatives from the group attend this meeting. How does everybody else feel about that? And I would happily step down from having to go so that I'm happy to give up my ability to go.
Yeah, thank you, Nora. I think I support the decision. I believe that the last time we were having this conversation, I know that we didn't finalize it completely, right? But I think that we were leaning towards it not reaching quorum. So I support Nora's decision. Sorry, I support Nora's decision. But I am also curious to hear from Daniel, Vanessa, and Ruben on your thoughts and how you feel.
I think we are a team, so I support team decisions. And I think also use the liberty for council members to respond in a most honest manner without feeling the pressure of, media or people twisting their words and stuff like that. Because this happened in the past where someone makes a comment that has nothing related to, a hatred or anything, and then it gets twisted. And yeah, so this would avoid that.
Sorry, I'm trying to understand your opinion. So are you in favor or not?
Hey, Vanessa, are you talking about Daniel?
Daniel, yes, yeah, I was trying to.
It seems that
the
it's
was kind of muffled.
it seems that he's not in favor of us reaching quorum for the just to make it more an authentic conversation. Correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, but that's what it seemed like.
Okay, thank you, Alex, for that help. Yeah, I was trying to think about it. Of course, like I support the idea, but at the same time, I was thinking, is there any other way to make this more fair for everyone, including us? But anyway, if that is the only way that we can get this done, I support the idea because we really want to. And as an idea, I was thinking if we can make a video with those people, of course, no image, no name, but they giving the testimony. Shouldn't be this hard. It's really, but I know it is what it is. I know, and we have to deal with it. And yeah, so basically, I support the idea if that's the only way. But it shouldn't be this hard.
Go
So
ahead,
I
Ruben.
think that yeah, so I think that hi everyone. So I think that's like a good idea. I don't think that like we need like forum. I think that probably what we need to know and discuss is like what are the issues that they are gonna be addressed there or that we want to bring to them, right? And maybe do like a video. It would be good maybe to share among us. But I think that's yes, it's like what it's like what are the things that we are gonna bring to the table to discuss with them. I think that will be a major point, right? So Nora and Alex, I think that you are planning to be there, right? Yeah, go ahead, Nora. Thank you.
I'm not planning. I said that I would give up my spot so that if someone really wants to be there, they are more than, I don't need to be at a thing to be involved in a thing. So I'm happy to give up my spot. I'm also happy to go if that's what people want. But what I was going to suggest going back to your question about what do we talk about. Councilmember Albornoz is in charge of DHHS committee, and I and Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez is in charge of economic development. I think it would be important to speak to some of those issues within the Latino community. I believe very strongly that if you are meeting with legislators, it is important to give them a what's in it for them. I think I would suggest the following issues. Housing, access to housing, the need for representation in managerial positions across government agencies of Latinos, because we are woefully underrepresented. The positive youth development piece, which I think is important to the community in preventing violence in the community. And I would say, because county council does not have direct oversight over MCPS, and only because of that, I would say to focus on early childhood education and early childhood centers, because they do have a responsibility and oversight over early childhood. And that falls under the Department of Health and Human Services, which of course then Councilmember Albornoz is in charge of. So those would be my suggestions.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think
Thank you, Nora. Thank you, Nora. I was gonna say, guys, real quick, just for formality, before we go into this discussion, can we just vote on ensuring that we don't want this in quorum, right? So like, if all in favor of not having quorum and not having this videotaped, if you can just raise your hand virtually, just to ensure that we're on the same page.
Sorry, can you repeat the proposal?
So basically, we're taking a vote right now to vote that the roundtable discussion with the council members is going to be a closed meeting, right? And that we're not going to reach quorum for the purposes of ensuring authenticity with the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So two members or less. Okay, perfect. All right, cool. All right, so with that being said, I think that one of the things we want to iron out today, right, is just the structure of that meeting, right? Nora already started the conversation, but you know, what does that meeting look like? What are the questions that we're asking? And most importantly, who are the people that are at this roundtable having this conversation? We have allotted 2 hours from 10 to noon. Bertha, I'm assuming that the council members have put a hold, but you haven't heard anything otherwise that they would be trying to minimize the time, right? So we have essentially 2 full hours to have with them on this conversation.
Yeah, I can follow up with their schedulers and find out. I know that right now there's that hold from that time frame, but I don't know if it's been made clear to them that, you know, it'll be needed for the entire full hours, but I can confirm that for you all.
Got it. So just to provide the framework, right? This will be an in-person event at the Montgomery County Council Hall. Essentially we have, to our knowledge, 2 hours, just to provide the context of the time frame that we have with them. So with that being said, I'll let you guys continue the conversation in regards to the structure of the topics, who needs to be there, or who we would like to be there, and most importantly, the questions that will be asked, so that way we can start drafting an agenda. So Vanessa, I think you were going to say something before I cut you off. My apologies.
Sorry, something about what?
I believe I accidentally cut you off before you were going to say something before I ran down.
Oh, no. And no. Go ahead. No, sorry.
So Alex, I think that it's like, yeah, Nora, you have like really good ideas, on what are like the things that we can bring up to the table, it's like for these like council members. And I wonder if we can came up with like on terms of legislation, I know that Evan Glass is the one that the person to tap in there, but do you think that we actually should look for like some kind of legislation to put on our recommendations? Or you think that we should not tap on that issue?
So
And when I say,
I'm not
Ruben,
clear on the question.
yeah, so the issues that you bring is like Natalie is like in charge of like the economic development of the county. So basically you bring like really good issues like the affordable housing. I think that she's doing like a good job on that end. Um, Although I think that there are like many issues that they are not addressing properly, because I feel like our communities they are pushing like for the affordable housing in a way that is not going to be sustainable. But apart from that, I think that on terms of like hate crimes, I think that I want to open like the questions like, do we want to look for opinions on legislation on like like when some of these like hate crimes they take place, we can put recommendations, it's like on the legislation that they are gonna be like there, right, on the laws. And I think that Evan Glass is like the person that to tap in, it's like that he could give us some clues on how to do that.
Can I say something?
go ahead, Vanessa.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think about points in which we can effectively have this conversation with this both of them. And yes, knowing what they are, what the area, let's say, they're working on, it's good to give us some ideas on what exactly we can address, because there are so many, maybe there are so many things that our community is concerned. But that's a good reference. And also thinking about specific things that are happening, like big issues, and and if those issues have been for years, like and years happening, I think we can bring those. Maybe I'm pretty sure that all of us know from the 5 issues that are in your area, like concerns, big concerns, like what's the number one? Maybe all of us can share what's going on, and maybe we can start putting those in the agenda. And I specifically, I want to talk about specific things. And if you ask me, I would share with you, thinking about the frame of hate crimes, and crime is it's violence involved, and the issue of parking, the lack of parking spaces here. It can, like, it's in a point where there are people slashing the tires, people putting, como se dice, clavos on behind the tires. Like, it's been violent, very violent, but it's not recently, it's for a long time. And these problems, especially Albornoz, knew since 2019. And we've been doing advocacy works, and we've been doing all these things. And we'll still are working on this, and we will continue working. But talking about hate crimes, this is something in specific that I'm bringing right now.
Hey guys, so no, thank you for the input, Vanessa and Ruben. So I think that, you know, I think that in regards to like asking them about policy recommendations, right? I think that one of the reasons why we brought the council members is so that way they can have a very meaningful engagement and conversation with people who are doing on the ground work when it comes to the Latino / Hispanic community. But as Nora mentioned, like in different areas, right? Housing, healthcare, economic development, stuff like that. And really letting them hear the perspective of what's happening on the ground and the experience, the lived experience, but also the learned experience of what is happening within our communities when it comes to, you know, anti-hate, anti-bias, etc. And so I think that one of the things that I really want to stray away from is asking the council members what their policy recommendation would be, or how would they like to see it, because I think that's our task, right? I think they know that they're going to be receiving recommendations from the different cohorts and ultimately the anti-hate task group. And so I think that they're really just eager to hear from us in terms of just having that authentic conversation with our community. And so we only have 2 hours, probably if that. And so I think one of the things that I want to propose is, you know, Vanessa, you already had come up with like some sort of framework when it comes to like questionnaires on, you know, simple questions that really dive deep and can take a long time to have a conversation around. How do people feel about that sort of framework with the conversation? Do you think it's not, you know, do you think it's not, we don't have enough time? Do you think this is a perfect framework? Not enough? I just want to really get down like the objective of this meeting, right? And I think once we kind of iron that out, then we can really think about the partners who we're bringing on board, using the framework or some ideas that we've already brought forth. So that's just like my opinion.
Thoughts?
I agree. I agree that we should stay away from asking the council members for their opinion on legislation, because that is their job. And what we're doing is we're coming up with recommendations. I think what's crucial is for the council members to hear the context and lived experience of county residents related to the issues that we identify. So maybe we should start with what issues we want to talk about or talk through.
Yeah, I want to clarify that when I talk about legislation, I was like, I meant not, you know, it's like asking them, you know, what kind of like legislation we should be put in place. But if we came up with like an idea for like a legislation, how likely is that will be put in place? And, you know, what is the process, you know, for us, you know, it's like to actually do that. It's like, if we consider that hate crimes should be prosecuted in like one way or another way, I think that is like our responsibility to say, this is our recommendation on how these hate crimes, they should be prosecuted, right?
Can I? Sorry. Can I
Go ahead,
have?
Vanessa. Go ahead,
Okay.
Vanessa.
Yeah. So I would like to put my thoughts into like prevention. What can we do to prevent to get there, instead of like, should we prosecute, not prosecute it, on things like that. Like, I gave you already something very specific about what can be promoting violence here, and in specific talking about the issue of the lack of parking spaces. What is not happening here in this area, Long Branch, the New Hampshire States area, is the enforcement. So I'm giving you something that is happening. It's not, things are not being enforced. Therefore, people are doing whatever they think it's like, yeah, because I need the space. I have my 5, 6 cars that I have to park here, so I'm gonna put all these cons. So this is something very specific, I think. And so this is promoting violence. This is promoting hate crimes. So they should know what's the severity of some of these issues. And I'm glad that Nora mentioned the implicit, explicit things, because yeah, there are now these spastic things like, no, but let's say, for example, another thing that is going on in here is pedestrian safety. So with DOT sending and saying, yes, we're doing this walkability study, and sending a flyer through mail in English only, and saying that this meeting will be virtual, I think that's kind of an implicit thing. Because of course you can imagine who's gonna be in that meeting. You already know. And I'm gonna stop there.
Berta, can you enable the chat, please?
Yes, let me
Thank
let me
you.
see how I can do that. 'Cause these are presets, but let me see. Breakout.
While she's doing that, Ruben, I see your hands up.
Yeah, so I want to say, like, Berta, thank you so much for like putting like that, the information that you are putting on the chat on like, you know, the measures that, you know, other counties they are like actually doing to help, you know, in terms of like how we can help, you know, like of these crimes to be reported, and on actual measures, you know, to address that. And I completely agree with you, you know, Vanessa, that there are like two different things that we need to work. Is like, one is prevention, but the other one is action. And I think that we have been talking a lot of like in our meetings about prevention. Is like how you can prevent things, how we can improve the quality of our community, how we can improve, you know, like the voices that they are like heard. But at the same time, we should not forget that we should put things on place for actually, when some of these things they're like happening, you should put measures in place that to make sure that it will not happen in the future.
I agree. Yes, you're right. You're right.
So if you guys want to take a look at the chat, Nora has put a list of the preliminary list of issues that we have highlighted so far, right? And for those that are watching that cannot see the chat, you know, we talked about the task, the Office of Legislative Affairs, to conduct Spanish listening sessions, right? Predominantly Latino census tracts of the county with adults and youth. Task the council to form a diversity hiring work group so that there is an increase of Latinos represented in managerial roles in the county. Provide cultural competency training to all agencies, county agencies, on Latinos in the county on how to conduct outreach in the Latino community. Launch a campaign and training for the community on how to report hate crimes on Latinos, where to obtain help. Right, Maryland law requires many of the Maryland government agencies and programs to provide English learners with language access. And then it goes on, right, creating an Office of Immigrant Affairs like DC, New York City, and other geographic locations that do welcome large numbers of immigrants to help coordinate information and resources. And so I think that like one of the things that we had talked about, right, was that we don't have the resources or enough information to get the statistics and data for this, right? And so how do we expand those resources, right, to our communities to be able to authentically, you know, get that information? And I think that that's one of the things that we're trying to do here with this roundtable, right? We're really having a conversation with the two council members, the two Latino his council members who represent majority Latino / Hispanic districts, right? And having a conversation with people who are on the ground organizations, right? Within our communities, and getting that feedback from them, so that way the council members can listen to them. So I think that I want us to kind of start really chipping away at the structure of the agenda, right? I think to move on, are we all in agreement that like that's the overall objective, right? To get this information. And then with that being said, right, I do want to start framing like some of the questions that we want to be asking within this conversation, and relating it to the different areas that many of these organizations and individuals work in, right? And how that shows up in that particular space.
Yeah, that sounds good. So Nora, one question is like the kind of things that you put like on the chat is like you and Alex had been working on these ones, or what this came from?
It came from our previous conversations and my trying to move us to the direction of actual recommendations, right? I'm not saying these should be the recommendations. I'm just saying we've talked about all of these with the exception of diversity hiring. And I'm just trying to show you how we might word some of the things that we have talked about, you know. And thank you, Berta. Definitely will make a note that the listening sessions are the Office of Community Engagement. But, you know, we've said we're lacking data. We've said that, well, first of all, there is very little representation of Latinos in any managerial positions at any of the agencies in Montgomery County. And I think with cultural proficiency goes representation, right? Because people who do the work day in and day out, who are members of the community, could do a much better job of reminding policymakers and implementers around cultural competency, because we're from the community. And I think it's important to note that, you know, across all of the agencies, the managerial positions, less than, I think it's 2% of the managerial positions are staffed by Latinos. It is not representative of the county. I think that county agencies, some of them don't know how to work with our community. So much like the Jewish community saying that there has to be cultural proficiency training, so that people understand anti-Semitism. I think that people need to have cultural proficiency training so that they can understand what is anti-Latino, how to combat anti-Latino sentiment, anti-immigrant sentiment, especially in light of the upcoming presidential campaign, which I'm sure will be full of vitriol. Number 4, you know, is, as we have all said, we are not clear that anyone knows how to file a hate crime, or even what is a hate crime against Latinos. So we need to make sure that we launch that campaign and we let people know what a hate crime is and how to report it, so we can even begin to have the data to say, look, this is happening. Because I think, frankly, our community is so used to maltreatment that they don't even recognize when something is a hate crime or prejudice based, because they just take it as an SOP, standard of operation. And so they go, that's what, you know, that's what being Latino in America is, and they wouldn't necessarily report, or they're too afraid to report. And then lastly, we talked about how language is a big barrier for all of the agencies. And We talked a little bit about how New York and DC have an Office of Immigrant Affairs to coordinate all these services. Montgomery County, for as large as it is and as big as the immigrant community is, we do not have an Office of Immigrant Affairs. So I was just trying to put together something. If you don't like them, we don't have to go by them. But I think that as we start to share ideas, we should start thinking of what it would sound like as a recommendation.
Yeah, no, definitely. This is like really useful. Thank you so much, like Nora, for doing this. I was like wondering, it's like, okay, this like came up with like now, but gotcha. Thank you so much for doing this.
I agree, and thank you, Nora, for this framework. And so I don't want to miss these points that you are making. Can we share that, but in an email document, not in the chat?
Absolutely, I can send it to you guys.
Yes, please. And I agree on something, because I was taking a look of the. Remember, I told you that I got some surveys, and actually, there are some of the youth that will like to continue doing the surveys, which I think is good. But so far, I can see, and this is something that is maybe we already knew this, but this is confirming. Almost nobody knows where to report. Almost none of them report any incident, which is even if it's a crime, they don't. They are very afraid. I think fear is the main reason. But yes, I completely agree about the campaign, how to do it. But at the same time, I would like to, if we are promoting, like, let's say, just an example, call the 311 number, like, I'm just making this up. Call the 311 number. They will speak Spanish, they will listen to you. So after, let's say, if that is a reality, we should do, after this initiative, I would like to continue like doing like a follow-up if that is really happening, because I think you agree on something. We do a lot of work trying to get the trust of the community. Is the most valuable thing that we have, I think, in order to promote participation, engagement, and all these kind of things. So things have to work, otherwise we miss their trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Daniel, I saw that your hand was up. I didn't want to skip over you.
It's okay. I lost my thought. That's all good.
Okay, so given the information that Nora just went over, in regards to just the framework of this conversation, what are some of the questions that we want to ask during this discussion, right? To ensure that we get the information that we need to make those recommendations as we move along, right? I know that Vanessa, you have created a set of questions already that you used in your outreach, and so did Danielle. So I'm wondering if we're okay to move forward, if we want to start having that conversation in regards to how do we utilize the time more effectively, and what questions should we be asking to ensure that we get, the information that we need to take back with us, so that way when we do, create these policy recommendations, we have that. So I guess, are folks okay using the questions that Vanessa had created? Do we think that in this given space and the time, we have ample time to use these questions? Would we rather use use a different set of questions? what do we envision the format looking like in this roundtable discussion?
I'm sorry, I don't know if everybody is a little confused, like I am right now. That's why nobody is talking. But I suggest, so are you talking about the questions that I suggested or I did? Well, yes, I did in the survey.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, I hope everybody got the, yeah, I think, yes, I shared the actual survey that I did with the people. So I don't know, maybe you already have an opinion about this, or we can improve it. I don't know. My second question would be, so now that I have these actual papers with these responses, and maybe I'll continue some. I have like 36 surveys. So please tell me where should I give it this to?
Vanessa, I think that you can, if you can just put the results of the survey, we have a Google Drive folder where we're just putting all the information that we're collecting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so maybe you can again ask the question because I think nobody's saying anything.
So I think, so again, we're trying to iron out just like the agenda, right? The structure of the meeting, right? Given what Nora just shared, right? And what all the information that we do have, right? Are we okay moving forward with using the questions that Vanessa laid out, right? Which is, you know, have you ever witnessed an anti-hate crime, right? If you did you know how to report it, where to report it? Have you ever yourself, you know, witnessed or been part of an anti-hate bias incident? If you did, right, did you know where to or where not to report it? And then the last questions, you know, what are some of the things that the county, right, and some of the things that we can do to prevent anti-hate bias? Does that sound appropriate to everyone, right? Or what do we vision? What I'm trying to get to is how do we utilize our time in this roundtable discussion to ensure that we get what we need out of this discussion? Nora, I'll pass it to you.
Actually, I see that Danny added something on the chat. Danny, do you want to talk more about what you just wrote?
It's all good though. You guys got it.
Okay. I want us to move forward. I really do, but I want to reflect back to you. So you want to bring two council members together with key community stakeholders to ask questions that we already know we don't have data on. I just don't think that's a appropriate use of time for them or for us. I think I mean, no offense, but let's say you invited identity to that conversation. Okay. I would have no way of telling you of our 11,000 people we've served last year, how many of them were victims of hate, violence, or prejudice, and certainly not defined by the law. I think that's the problem. So I don't know that CASA could come to a meeting and answer those questions. But what I would say is that we could invite CASA, Identity, Cheer, and Impact. And I bet you members of those communities could talk about how hard it is to get housing in the county, or where do they run into problems in assigning leases, right? As immigrants or undocumented people. They could share those experiences with the council members, or maybe they could talk about how there's such a small number of pediatricians in Gaithersburg, and so the lines for pediatric clinics, free clinics, is super long, and it takes months to get an appointment. If we bring people and the voice of the community together, it is to ask them to share with the council people their experience on the issues that the council people are working on. So then the council people can understand what the barriers are. I don't think the purpose of the meeting with the council people is to ask questions that we already have the answers to, which is nobody knows how to fill out a hate crime incident report for Latinos. I mean, that's my opinion, but I will defer to the group.
I agree. Well, if I can talk, I agree. Thinking how to make this effective and productive, let's say, this conversation with these council members, I think it's I like your perspective, and again, I would invite someone that can share how severe the problem is, talking about hate crimes and related to the lack of parking spaces in this area, or how aggressive drivers are in this Carroll Avenue, even though we have a school, even though for years and years have been reported even deaths, people that died in this avenue, but still we don't have the enough support to do more. That's kind of obvious, but I would have two people sharing how bad it is in those two issues that I already told you: the lack of safety, the lack of parking spaces, and the pedestrian safety. Very specific things.
So then I'm hearing that for this roundtable, you certainly want to share with council member the lived experiences of our community when it comes to accessing, knowing, utilizing important resources and services within, you know, county government that county government provides. But I just wanted to again center the conversation on combating hate and bias. And I do understand also, Nora, the piece that comes with not having representation in agencies, right, that are attending the needs of our community. So I get the points that you have been making, which are super, super important. So I just wanted to, Alex, follow up also on an initial, you know, part of the conversation that you have been having and structuring this roundtable. Perhaps you wanna, and this is just a suggestion for you to consider, you may want to speak to the council members to the work that you have been carrying as you've been meeting, right? So Nora already provided a pretty good summary of those discussions, but also, for example, what Vanessa did during the food distribution, right? And this is a report of what our community has. You know, they aren't sure how to report out a hate and bias incident, right? So then the recommendation, as you know, Nora put in the chat here, is that there needs to be more investment in public service announcement campaigns, making sure that our community in a bilingual, culture proficient manner is aware of how to report crimes. And again, I think emphasizing, to Nora's point, the importance that we are here, county government is here to provide top-notch services to everyone, regardless of, you know, where they come from, their linguistic proficiency. So I think there's certainly a lot of synergy with what, you know, what I'm hearing from everyone. I also think that it should be important to report out on Daniel's conversation with the youth, so that, you know, I think there's very much alignment with what the task force cohorts have been tasked, which, you know, as you know, it's to develop recommendations, whether it's protocols, procedures, legislation to combat hate and bias in our community. So if you want to use that framework that you discussed earlier with, you know, using Vanessa's survey as a way to speak to the need and the gap that we have in our community, I certainly think that that's one way to go about it, but also having the council members having them the opportunity to, you know, to respond to your your work and maybe suggest ways that they think could strengthen these recommendations. I think there's certainly a lot of value. You're not asking them to tell you, you know, examples or ways, for example, a piece of legislation that can come about. Instead, you could even include that King County, right, piece of legislation that actually created a hotline in a portal to strengthen the way that victims can report crimes. And, you know, and I just skimmed through it, it's being led through their Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice. The county does have an Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice too. So I think just, you know, providing that type of feedback and dialogue, it's certainly very, I think, important. But of course, you also have been in our community, you know what our needs are. So I you know, it could just be something as organic as, you know, sitting down and then having the conversation flow. But I do agree on having some structure to leverage that time with the council members too.
And also, I would like to add, just to give you a very specific example, how having this conversation using this survey, and when I was preparing, let's say in a way, preparing these youth to do the survey, I was telling them, let's make this sound like a conversation that you're having. No, question, answer, like a robot. And they were agreeing on that. And I was, and one of the conversations that they told me, these youth told me, and he was sharing with me, and he said, you know, I was talking to a lady, and she was talking that different times she went to this place. I'm not going to mention the place, but she went to this place, and she was told, why don't you go back to your country? You shouldn't be asking this much. Because she went to get some food, but at the same time she was asking a place where she can get diapers, and she got this response. So that's an example of what kind of conversation we can have, starting with these questions. But that can give us, like, for example, how bad is the housing conditions? Not only talking about affordability, but the housing conditions. How many times someone is going to the manager's office and they are getting these responses? So you see, using this tool can bring us to different issues that are happening, and we were provoking this conversation. That's just a tool that we are using, but we are finding out these things. Thank you.
Do we have any other thoughts from other colleagues or cohort members, Ruben or Daniel?
I'm wondering if Vanessa and Daniel can talk a little bit about what kinds of responses they've been getting from the surveys.
Definitely, and I actually had a chance. We had back to school night at Joan Lelick and Highland Elementary. So both schools are elementaries, and I was able to run a survey through those schools with the parents that were getting to the parent night. So I do have more responses than the 100 we got on back to school event that was at Glenmouth Forest at the Glenmouth station. So I'll share with Bertha and make sure you guys have the responses and see the deficiency of people knowing what a hate crime is or how to report it. Because most people don't even know what they were being part of or like were victims of a hate crime. They just not been educated or there hasn't been any information given either at schools for their kids or just in general in the county having more exposure to what a hate crime actually is. So
And I would say, Nora, you described something that is a reality. For some people, they are like thinking that this is kind of normal because I'm an immigrant, because everybody thinks that I'm coming here to get things for free, to, those kind of misconceptions. And that's another part of the of the problem. But at the same time, there are some other things that I'm finding. And I was asking, I remember when I shared with you my draft, because of course, I just have an idea of what we can put in. We can put in this survey, and I wanted to know your opinion. But I was asking to whom I can share these results to tabulate, or I'm not an expert on data analysis. So maybe I will need some help on how you present these results, a report of these results. I can tell you in advance, they didn't elaborate much in many cases. You can tell different reasons. People don't want to talk about it. People are afraid of speaking, but there are, at the same time, there are important things that we can take from this. Yeah. Basically, I'm gonna need some help on how to present these results.
I saw an email, Vanessa, that just shared an email, and I know that Ruben was gonna help with that, and Ruben, I can also partner with you, collaborate as needed too.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bertha. Just like, yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
So I think I want to do a time check because we are getting closer and closer to our time. Do we feel comfortable finalizing this structure? I mean, I think that this is going to be something that we're going to also have to work offline in terms of like the agenda and the structure of the meeting, and then also which personnel want to be there at this particular roundtable. And then last thing I do want to say is that I think something that we can start hopefully, because I know that we're probably not going to iron out everything on the agenda, the last 15 minutes is if we can start compositing a list people and organizations that we want to invite because we need to get that out ASAP to them. So one of the things that I propose is can we start ironing out the list of people who we think are appropriate people to be there? I know Nora started, right? Like obviously like CASA, Identity, Impact, Silver Spring, but other people in those areas that we can start reaching out to. So that way we can ensure that we're having conversations prior to this, but also that they are able to attend. How does that sound to people in terms of utilizing our final minutes?
Yeah, like a draft of what the program may be, right? And I would like to add Nora's points that she put in the chat, so we can have the frame.
Yeah. So we started already somewhat of a draft that we can share with the group, right? And we can work offline to finalize that draft. But in terms of invitees, right, people that we want to invite, I think that if we can get that ironed out within the next 24 to 48 hours, just to ensure that we are inviting them ahead of time and ensuring that they are able to make it. In terms of like the sizable group, right? I think one of the things that we were saying is like the smaller the group, the better, right? And the room only holds about 20 people, Bertha, correct me if I'm wrong. So we want to ensure that we have no more than 15 individuals, including the 2 council members, as part of this conversation. Are we in agreement with that? Are we okay with that? Having between 10 to 15 people, no more than 15 people?
Yes. And also, I would like if we can come up with some dates, like until this time, you can send the confirmation of these people. So little by little, we get confirmation of everything.
Yeah, so I think we can just work off a master doc, right? Where we can put the list in the context of the invitees, the people that we plan to invite. And then myself and Bertha can work on getting those emails and calling up people and inviting them personally to be part of this roundtable discussion, and go from there. Does that sound fine to everyone?
Yeah,
Yeah, it sounds good. And I can tell you in advance that I would like to invite 2 people from the community, and one each of them representing the issues that I already told you. The 2 issues, the lack of parking spaces and safety, pedestrian safety, in both how incidents of hate, like you can tell how that is related with incidents of hate incidents and hate crime also.
Yes, of course. And I look, I think we're all very well connected and we know a lot of people in different spaces, right? So that's something that we can work offline, right? Ensuring that the finalized list makes sense, right? And that we're having representation from, you know, different areas and different, you know, as Nora pointed out, like from housing to economic development to healthcare, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And then again, like we're not for time purposes, I don't think we're gonna, you know, finalize our discussion when it comes to the agenda, but that's something that we can continue working on within the master doc and follow up offline. If that's okay with people.
And I can imagine, since we've been working with communities for a very long time, I know that we all have the experience, but let's remember that we're gonna have to also work with our guests, let's say. What is this exactly? How much impact their participation may have, or not setting like lots of expectations, but I'm just sharing. Sorry, I'm just saying that, describing what is happening here, what their role will be. Therefore, they we unfortunately we cannot hear the story from the beginning to the end because we only have these many minutes per person, like, ahead with this information. So in a way, we are preparing them to have a very effective participation.
Sounds good. Thank you, Vanessa. Do any other members of the cohort have any final thoughts before we move into scheduling our next meeting and potential upcoming events or dates?
So I'm gonna send you all an email with the proposed structure, so that we have something to work off of, and we can, and when I do this, I really open it to you guys to tear apart, to put back together. I just want to have something. I feel like it's easier to work from something than from nothing. So I'm just trying to move us along. So I'll send it to you today.
Awesome. Thank you, Nora. Really appreciate it. Okay, with that being said, can we go ahead and schedule our next cohort meeting? Bertha, can you remind us when the next full anti-hate task force meeting is?
Yeah. So you do have the roundtable next Wednesday. So you could potentially meet Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday of next week for the cohort. And of course, the week of the 16th, it's pretty open as well. And the next full task force is on October 26th, Thursday, October 26th. And that's when the Black African American cohort will be presenting their recommendations. So for your next cohort, I mean, it's up to you, the week of October 9th or the 16th. Sorry, I was looking at my calendar. My calendar is there.
Mm-hmm.
What time? The 9th is Columbus Day.
I think she was just referring to like the week of, like having it the week of the 9th. Yeah. Is there any opposition to having it the week of the 9th? So it would be the week following the roundtable?
Mm-hmm.
I'm in favor of that.
What day?
So there's Thursday, if you want to keep Thursdays, there's Thursday, October 12th at 11 a.m. if it works for you. Well,
11, yes. 11, yes. I am available.
I am not available that day, but feel free to meet without me. I'm available at
What time are you available?
1 o'clock that day. I have a 3-hour training from 9:30 to 12:30 that day that I have to be at, but I'm available at 1:30.
Can that be at 2? I have a meeting until 2. I don't know. What about the rest?
So can we do a vote? So those that can make it Thursday at 11 a.m., can you raise your hand if that works? Ruben, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, 1, 2, then that works for me as well. I could do any time between 11 and 3 p.m. Okay. So it seems like everyone minus Nora can do Thursday at 11. So does that work? I'm sorry, Nora, we really want you to be there as well. But
No,
does that work?
it's okay. Go ahead and
Yeah.
meet without me. It's fine. You can.
Okay.
You can.
So
I have no problems.
Okay, so Bertha, can we go ahead and then schedule that then?
yeah.
Thursday, October 12th at 11 a.m.
Main purpose for this?
This is our cohort meeting, our next cohort meeting.
Okay.
So we will most likely be dissecting the conversation from the roundtable that happened a week prior, and then just like planning future events, right? Collecting more information. Remember, our presentation is not till the end of November, so I think that little by little we need to start reading the information that we're collecting, and then starting to create a PowerPoint, right? Starting to really put together our presentation would be great as well. We still have some time, right? But we want to make sure that we're creating this as we go along as well. So, any final comments before we close out the meeting?
Oh, and Nora, I really regret that you're not available today, but if you can please send any observation, recommendation, whatever you have, so we can have that during the meeting, that can be really helpful.
Of course, and I can work with Alex independently and send you whatever I have. Absolutely. I'm sorry, I just have a prior engagement that day.
Thank you.
All right. With that being said, we'll go ahead and close out the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bertha, as always. And we'll see each other next time.